Hello, thanks for joining me. I'm the Badger Reborn, and today I'm going to talk about rewrites for the Wheel of Time TV show. I'll recap my thoughts from episode 1, and then detail my thoughts for episodes 2 and 3, including some discussion of characters. In case you missed the first video, make sure you check that out for my thoughts on episode 1 as well as a brief introduction to the channel. I'll put the link to that in the episode description below. This video contains spoilers for the Eye of the World. If you haven't finished reading that, make sure you wrap it up and then come back. Episode 1, Leave Takings, ended with Moraine, Lan, Rand, Matt, Perrin, Egwene, and Tom, who's being played by Alexander Willom, leaving Emond's Field. A quick note, I forgot to mention Padan Fain in episode 1. He'll be in it as well, doing the same things he does in the books. Amazon recently released a photo of what looks like it could be his cart in Emond's Field. From that first video, I had two ideas about how episode 1 could go, either following very closely to the events of the books, staying in Emond's Field the whole time and focusing on those characters, or doing that, in addition giving us some Logain backstory and possible introduction of other characters as well. Episode 2 is titled From the Two Rivers. I think it will begin with the group galloping away from Emond's Field being chased by Trollocs and Myrddraal. I think the show might remove Drakkar just for budgetary reasons. I don't think this would be too big of a loss though. They're a very interesting creature for sure, but they only come up a few times and they don't add a whole lot. Brandon Sanderson revealed this gorgeous photo of Tarn Ferry, and with it came a little bit of description as well. It says that Master Hightower, who is the owner of the ferry, jumps into the river trying to save the sinking ferry, and he drowns doing this. This obviously deviates from the book because in the text, Lan pays Hightower, Moraine sinks the ferry to prevent Trollocs or other pursuers from coming across after them, and then the group rides off. Hightower presumably walks to a bridge or has another boat, because he then takes Nynaeve across the ferry, or another ferry as well, a little bit later on. If this scene stays in the show, as it's described in the notes, it makes Moraine's morals even more dubious than they were in the books. Moraine presumably could just grab Hightower with the One Power, or stop the whirlpool that she created herself. By not doing so, it could be argued that she essentially murders Hightower. However, we know that Moraine is incredibly mission-focused, and will do whatever it takes to keep the boys safe. If she sees this as a needed circumstance to protect the boys from harm, then I think it falls within the bounds of her character in the book to let Hightower drown. In the show, it serves to make her a more frightening and great character both to new audiences who don't know Moraine, and also to the Emond's Field boys. Up until now, I haven't deviated much from the books. There was a possible Logain section added in episode 1, and then this small possible change at Tarn Ferry in episode 2. From now on, though, things are going to start to deviate a lot more wildly from the book, so buckle up and make sure to let me know what you think about these changes in the comments below. So at this point, I think it could cut back to Nynaeve in Emond's Field. She could be talking with Tam and Abel Cawthon, as well as some more of the village council and the women's circle. Nynaeve would decide to go after the group, and Tam and Abel could either decide to follow her at this point or wait until Tam's leg is healed a little bit more, as they do in the book. Then, the story moves back to a character we saw introduced in episode 1, Logain. He'd be talking to a group of villagers and trying to persuade them to follow him. However, they're angry and even threaten him, and Logain finally leaves, but not without a small group of disreputable-looking men and women following along with him. Logain is clearly stressed and is dealing with the burden, despite having no one to talk to, of being this hated and feared man, despite the fact that he is trying to do something that he sees as a noble cause for the world. Next, we move back to the Emond's Field group, who are traveling through the woods. When they stop for the night, Lan teaches the sword, axe, and quarterstaff to Rand, Perrin, and Matt. Lan is surprised by how quickly they pick them up and some skills they have already, especially Matt's quick hands with the quarterstaff and Perrin's skill with the axe, since he's already been practicing. He's also impressed with Rand's use of the flame and void technique. Tom also teaches some knife throwing. Matt picks it up really quickly, but Perrin is really pretty terrible at it due to his large hands. Moraine would then give Egwene the lesson about the One Power, which would help new viewers understand the magic system, as it does with new readers in the book. This would also help to explain the differences between saidin and saidar, and we could get one of the male characters saying they fervently wish they'll never meet a male channeler. Some fans have argued that the magic system might need to be simplified for the show, but I disagree. I think it's already a pretty simple magic system, at least the channeling part of it is, and it's pretty foundational to Robert Jordan's whole world. I think it could stay how it is, but just this explanation from Moraine would help bring new viewers into it and lay the groundwork for how it works. As they travel, Moraine lays out the outline of her plan to lead the group to Baerlon, onto Whitebridge, and then to Cairhien and into Tar Valon, to the White Tower. Yes, I said Cairhien, not Caemlyn. I think after discussing this idea on Discord, it's a change that makes a lot of sense. As in the book, this could be where Nynaeve catches up with the group. she could learn from Moraine that she was able to channel, and decide to travel with the rest of the group. Upon leaving Baerlon, the group would be chased by Shadowspawn into Shadar Logoth. I think the episode could end here, or could show the events of Shadar Logoth, including the group splitting up. Either way could work for episode 2. While in Shadar Logoth, I think Pat and Fane should be shown to be following the group and meet up with Mordeth after the boys do. This is shown off-screen in the book, but I think it might make sense for new viewers to see a little bit more of that interaction and how Pat and Fane interacts with Mordeth, and they sort of fuse together. The group would be split up into the same parties that they are in the book. Rand, Matt, and Tom would end up on Bail Doman's ship, and Rand would accidentally channel again, moving the boom on the ship. Doman could be played by Peter Franzen, who's another actor who's been cast in an unconfirmed role. Perrin, Egwene, and Bella, of course, could end up with Elias McKara and the Wolves. Elias could be another option for who Peter Franzen might play. Nynaeve, Lan, and Moraine would meet up and continue their journey. I don't see episode 2 going any farther than these sequences, and I think they would be a good end place for that second episode. Get a lot of action right at the end, and then the characters split up into those multiple groups. So now moving into episode 3, which is titled A Place of Safety. If the group ends episode 2 in Shadar Logoth, then I think the first few relative quiet hours before they meet Mordeth and the Trollocs come would be shown in episode 3 and could kind of fit that place of safety. But if this happens before episode 3 starts, then I think there are some things in my version of episode 3 that could fit with that place of safety title as well. Let's start with Perrin and Egwene in their group. I mentioned that they meet up with Elias McKara, but I think there's a few ways that they could do this. Either they meet up with Elias and Hopper and the other wolves like in the books, or they could meet up with just the wolves and Elias gets cut from the show. Another option I've seen suggested is that Perrin and Egwene meet up with Elias and the other wolves, but Hopper isn't present. Instead, when Elias dies later on, he becomes Hopper in the World of Dreams. I actually kind of like this change. I think they're all reasonable options, but I think Rafe and Amazon might be a little wary to include a scene or several scenes of bonding with a large wolf and then that wolf dying early on in the season, since that's pretty reminiscent of Game of Thrones and what happens with the Stark dire wolves. Instead, I really do like the idea that Elias and Hopper are sort of the same person, but exists as Elias when alive and then becomes Hopper in the World of Dreams afterwards. Perrin, Egwene, and Elias, or whatever that group ends up being, would then meet up with the Tinkers. I don't think they would stay for very long, not nearly as long as in the book, just enough time to establish what the Way of the Leaf is and meet some of those Tinker characters. This time with the Tinkers could be that place of safety for Perrin and Egwene, as they take a small break between the perils of their journey. The show could then cut to Matt on deck with Tom and Bail Doman on the Spray. They would be watching Rand up in the rigging as he has another episode of channeling sickness, though of course they don't know what it is. Rand almost falls off the rigging and breaks his neck or dies, but they just think it's some kind of foolish madness, and he's not sure what it is either. Next, Nynaeve would be frustrating the unflappable Moraine, and also falling for Lan. I think they'll spend a little more time setting up this relationship on screen and in obvious ways than they do in the book. The relationship setup is wonderfully subtle in the book. A lot of new readers miss it the first time through, and then love seeing those small little hints at the relationship build up when they do a reread. However, I think Rafe and Amazon know that they don't have the luxury of assuming that new viewers will rewatch the show and pick up those things, so they'll have to make it a little bit more obvious the first time around. Since the large group has now been split up into smaller groups, there'll be less time for other characters to be shown, but I think there's still time for a Logain scene. In it, he will be shown to have gained a large following, and also to be increasing his skills with channeling, learning a lot of the tricks of the One Power. This would be setting up for a pretty big conflict with the Aes Sedai coming up, but I think episode 3 is still a little bit too early for that to happen. The episode can then shift back to Rand, Matt, and Tom as they disembark the Spray in Whitebridge. They're hoping to meet up with Moraine there, yet she hasn't arrived. In the show, I think Tom will have already told the story of Owen, his nephew, and kind of his path through channeling and being gentled by the Red Aja. So it doesn't come as quite a surprise in Whitebridge, but I think the Murdraw will still show up in Whitebridge the same way as in the book, and Tom will make that heroic sacrifice of fighting him while Rand and Matt have time to escape. I think there's a real opportunity here to make this fight scene even more impactful than it was in the book. In the book, we know that Tom is making this big sacrifice, but we don't see much of it on screen other than a flash of knives and a scream. In the show, though, I think there's a chance we might see a fight scene where the Murdraw grabs Tom's leg and physically snaps it, and we really hear that crack. This would be a pretty gruesome scene, and it would really show us why Murdraw need to be feared. I think it would also give new viewers less reason to suspect that Tom is alive. The fantasy trope at this point of an off-screen character death is pretty played out, and I think viewers at this point just assume that characters aren't dead when that happens. So this leg snap, and we know that Tom ends up breaking his leg in the fight, I think this could really drive home to some new viewers that Tom really is dead, which is a good thing for the show. Some fans have speculated that Tom might actually die in the show at this point, but I don't think that would happen yet. Rand and Matt will then continue on their way to Cairhien, making that fateful stop at Four Kings. As in the book, Rand will channel a lightning bolt to save Matt and himself, and then become really sick. As they continue the journey, Matt's tainted dagger from Shadar Logoth will continue to infect his personality, and that will become a big problem as well. I personally love their traveling scenes in the Eye of the World. They're my favorite part of the book, actually, but I think they'll be cut down a little bit, trimmed for the show, so that it's not so much time with them on screen, and we get a little bit more time with the other characters. Next, I think it would cut back to Perrin and Egwene, along with Elias or the Wolves, as they're traveling, and they encounter the White Cloaks. Depending on the setup, Elias dies, being stabbed by a White Cloak, and Perrin goes crazy, leading to them getting captured. While in the camp, Perrin reflects, and maybe at that point has his first dream where he encounters Hopper in the wolf dream, and realizes that Hopper is Elias. By the way, that brings up the nightmares, which I haven't mentioned Rand, Matt, and Perrin having. I think they would have had a few along the way, overnights a few times, both with Moiraine and without Moiraine. I just haven't mentioned them yet. I'm not sure they'll be quite as prominent or as frequent in the show as they were in the books. They felt a little bit repetitive to me at times in the books, and I think they'll trim that back a little bit in the show. In the White Cloak camp, we'd be introduced to Jeffrey Bornhold and Jarrett Byer as well, who would develop this grudge against Perrin due to him killing White Cloaks. This would lead into the scene where Moiraine, Lan, and Nynaeve discover the White Cloak camp and realize that they've captured Perrin and Egwene. Then we get the exciting scene of Lan sneaking in and breaking them out, along with Nynaeve untying the horse lions, which is a great scene for Nynaeve. I really love it. Then they get back up to the camp with Moiraine, and we get another little Lan and Nynaeve moment where they bond a little bit more. In the book, we really get that scene of Lan almost wanting to leave Moiraine and go after Nynaeve when she's in trouble, and I think that would be a great thing to have in the show. Now that those two groups are reunited, they continue on their way to Cairhien. Rand and Matt have arrived in Cairhien already, and while Rand's exploring the city, I think this would be a great time for him to meet Loial. He might alternatively meet him later on in Caemlyn, but I think it makes sense for him to meet him right here. At the end of episode 3, Nynaeve, Lan, Moiraine, Egwene, and Perrin would arrive in Cairhien as well, and then have that joyful reunion with Rand and Matt, including Moiraine healing Matt a little bit. Though this is a significant portion of the Eye of the World already through 3 episodes, I think it could be a realistic pace for the TV show. Amazon will no doubt want to hook viewers with a fast pace and a lot of action, but Rafe and the writing team will have to do a great job of making sure that character development is not lost. That's what so many people, including myself, love about the Wheel of Time. It has such rich characters, and they have such great interactions with each other, as well as such great internal monologues. That's going to take a lot of writing skill, but I think that they can do it. I think they're up to the challenge. I can't wait to see how it plays out. Let me know your thoughts on my episodes 2 and 3 in the comments below. What changes did you love or hate? And what changes might you make yourself? It looks like the Gareth Bryn and Elias McKara merger I teased. We'll have to wait until a little bit later. These episodes contain a lot of my 3 favorite characters, Matt, Rand, and Nynaeve. We also get the possible introduction of Min and Bail Doman, who are really fun characters themselves. Min's near the top for me as well. Do you think Min or Bail Doman might get the axe as well, or are they definites to stay in the show? Let me know in the comments below. Finally, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And please leave a like and subscribe to the video as well. That would really help me as I get started with this. If you'd like to join my Discord server and continue the conversation, I'll leave a link to that in the description below this video too. I'll see you next time.